everyone. Today's show is packed with fascinating guests, and we're talking about near-death experiences. First up, we have Dr. Kelly Victory. Well, actually, not first up, but at the break. We're a trauma and emergency specialist with over 30 years of experience who's tackled everything from frontline medicine to corporate healthcare innovation. Then there's our guest, Jim Bruton, a man who's lived his childhood dreams to the fullest, winning an Emmy, bringing live video from every continent, and even surviving a near-death experience that changed his life. Sorry about that, Jim. And backed by popular demand, we have psychic medium Andrew Anderson, who I am putting together with Jim because he not only has had a near-death experience, mentioned that he wanted to do a show about it, but he's had over 70,000 readings under his belt and has also lived a wonderful life as well. So, and also stick around to the end when we welcome a spiritual life coach, Toby Gant. Oh my God, my lips aren't working today. This episode's got something for everyone. I find this really interesting. Life coaches, I call them psychic therapists. So we have a lot to offer today, and welcome everybody to the show. Thank you for joining Calling Out with Susan Pinsky. And you guys have just witnessed my intro faux pas, which is unusual for me. Hello? Uh-oh.
Did we lose everybody?
They came, they went. Oh, hello. Welcome to Calling Out with Susan Pinsky. Hi, Jim. Hi, Kelly. How are you today? This is a wacky format. Nobody does this but me. We enjoy the world of spirituality on a regular basis with people who have a gift to look into the afterlife and things that happen, here in the now and what happens after we pass away. We were very intrigued by your story, and I really want to talk more about what you've seen and what you feel. But first, I'm going to bring in Andrew, and he's going to, he doesn't know anything about you. He might know your name or whatever, but he's going to talk to you about your psychic, I don't know, your ancestors, people in the here, the now, the afterlife, and see if he can get this party started.
Yes. First of all, I transposed your name. I looked at you first. I'm like, am I talking to Tim Burton? So your name, but I don't know if you've ever heard that before. It looks.
People butcher my name in all sorts of ways. Yeah. It's all right.
So yeah, I'm a psychic medium, and I've had the only thing I know about you is I think you were in a plane crash. That's not. I read that only in what Susan. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you survived this, obviously.
Well, sort of, but I came back. It was like catching.
Yeah, here you are. A lot of times there's two most important points in people's lives. One is being born. The next one is not dying. It's finding out why. And I feel like you never had your why of why you were born before the crash. I think that everything leading up to that, of course, your life completely changed after this crash. When was this, by the way?
October 6, 2016. 8 years.
And what kind of plane were you on? I'm just curious about that.
I used to build and fly my own historical reproduction aircraft, like World War I, 1920s, 1930s. Right. This was a 1930s reproduction.
So you went up in one of your own planes, kind of like John Denver. I don't know if you remember his story.
Yeah, but his was not one of his. I don't think he built that.
He just built something, right? Yeah. So what I feel with you, I think that everybody. I don't know a lot about the masses of people that have near-death experiences. I know about my own, and I know that when we have it, and you had similar. I guess I was in a coma too. I was in ICU for 36 days. They said I wasn't going to make it. It was all kinds of stuff happened to me. But going to the other side completely changed my life. And anybody that has that experience, it can't help but change you. Because I went from, the faith aspect of church, Bible, God, which is what they teach us, to knowing. And that's pretty profound. I feel on a large level, you had the same thing. your life maybe was driven before this by the wrong things. I feel a disconnect with father of some sort. There's something that happened when you were younger, but this is unrelated to what I'm talking about. I'm more picking up on who you were before the plane crash and what happened since. So people say, oh, you had a dream, you're dreaming, whatever. Okay, people have dreams every night. You don't have a dream and wake up and become a psychic medium or change your life completely from a dream. This experience, as you know, Jim, was pretty profound and very real. And you know what I mean? My situation was I was in the hospital and I developed pancreatitis with double pneumonia, body just completely shut down. So they put me into a coma, and I remember going and instantly waking up on the other side. The colors, I remember, were magnified and beautiful. We could see everything that we see as humans, but I was literally, it felt like a freedom. Like it was so easy to get around. I could feel the life and everything, even the grass. It was pretty amazing. And I like to know some of the changes that you've experienced, because a lot of times it gets us on the path to guide us to be driven by different things and not so much financial and money, which is, how do you feel about that, Jim?
I would say there's been a definite disconnect between a lot of attachments I had prior to my crash since afterwards. And I would attribute that to I would call it depersonalization in my experience. And you hear how a lot of people on the other side come back because they're worried about their kids or whatever. I had no memory of this place whatsoever. I was sent back, and I so.
Well,
but
wait,
anyway,
isn't that a memory?
Yeah. Say again.
Isn't that a memory? You said you were sent back.
Well, I have a memory of being sent back, but I don't have a memory of this place I was being sent back to. Well, let's put it this way. I have a memory of everything zooming out at the end. And then I came to in the hospital. But I don't remember anything about this place when I was there.
But you did remember you were sent back. That's profound.
I remember zooming out. I didn't know where I was going. I just remember everything zooming out. And then seeing everything zoom out, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know if I'm leaving or it's leaving, but all I can say is my next conscious thought after that was a week after I came out of the coma when I'd already been moved to another hospital. And my near-death experience was my immediate memory.
That's kind of what happened with me. I didn't remember everything right off the bat either when I woke up. I remember feeling like, I had a major memory of what I was with my mom, my aunt. I actually went to Las Vegas and visited my sister. I remember everything so profoundly. I remember going down a dark tunnel of sorts at first. That I have a memory of. And it was what I saw was some negativity associated with my life. Maybe some things I was supposed to take a look at, to learn and grow from. Then I went to the other side and actually experienced what spirits that I see daily experience. And it was pretty amazing. You can't look at life the same way anymore. Your purpose obviously wasn't what you thought it was before the accident. I feel like there's a lot more for you to do. You certainly, I think you wrote a book, right? About this. I saw that. 2 books? Yeah. There's still another one in you, by the way.
Well, I am working on the 3rd now.
Yeah, the trilogy. But this one seems to be, I feel like you're gaining over the years a little more understanding to what happened. I think you got clarity. You grew up in a house where was religion forced on you to some degree?
No, but it was a strict household.
Strict. That's what I'm getting at. And where is Dad passed?
1986 at the age of 55.
Yeah. So you look pretty young for that.
I'm 68. I just refuse to grow up.
Yeah, you look good. Great, actually.
Don't we all?
So I guess a lot of the disconnect I was picking up on right away with you and your father was he left you when you were younger when you could have used him. Plus there was other issues associated with that too in that house. So where'd you grow up?
Jacksonville, Florida, and then Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, okay. So I'm wondering, I didn't, of course, see your books or anything, Jim. I'm just wondering, how this experience changed you. It prompted you to write 3 books.
Well, and that's the thing. I would say it was the experience itself. You know how you hear some people have a near-death experience and they're terrified of sharing it with anybody because they don't want to be called crazy or whatever. Even in the hospital, I felt this thing was trying to push through my pores. And the first person I talked to was a nurse on the first shift, because she obviously was just hanging around because she liked to talk about stuff. I said, can I tell you this thing that's going over in my head? And when I did, she started crying. I said, why are you crying? She says, because I don't want you to die. And I said, why? She said, because you're magical. And so there's stuff you bring back from the other side, just in terms of your radiation that's totally nonverbal, that people pick up on. And for me, it was demonstrated through kindness, care, I would even say tenderness. And I had 5 doctors.
That's a lot of what you didn't experience growing up.
Say again?
There's a lot of what you didn't have growing up.
That is definitely true.
Yeah.
Matronly nurse came in around midnight one night, checking on me. She kissed me on the forehead. It was a lot of intense kindness.
Yeah, which is pretty profound.
And you don't remember anything once you went into this other world?
No, what I didn't remember was this world. Here's the thing. When I was in the hospital, very cognizant of my near-death experience. I knew that. I looked at my laptop. I asked somebody to bring my laptop because I wanted to start typing up my experience, worried it would fade, which it never has. And I looked at my emails and I realized I had no memory of those emails up to 2 days before my crash. And then when I came out of my coma, I had no memories for 1 week. So I thought, isn't it interesting that bookending the most lucid experience, super conscious experience I've ever had in my life are, again, 2 bookends of amnesia? I thought, how do you explain that? No, I have a very detailed, in fact, I have a website up. It's in my books. I speak about it a lot. And I have.
What stood out to you the most? Like, what was just like, when you told it, people were just like, okay, sure you did. Like, what did you see or feel get a glimpse of?
What did I feel from the experience, or what did I feel in sharing my experience?
You didn't see or feel anything once you were in this coma? You didn't feel like you were in an otherworldly place?
Well, yeah. If you want, I could talk to you about my experience and rather.
Tell us. Okay. Tell us a detail. Once you probably told this story a million times. What would you say stands out the most? That when you say it, people are like, "What?" Like, what? Okay. Tell us more.
One thing I would characterize it. You know how with most near-death experiences, you hear, "Okay, I went through a tunnel. I saw my dead loved ones. I had a life review. Maybe or maybe not. I got a big message and I was sent back." I'm just going to be blunt. That's a pretty passive experience. Mine was not passive. It was very interactive. Work was required of me. I would say I didn't go through a tunnel, but it was more like I teleported to the terrace of a tall building in an apocalyptic landscape. Imagine New York or LA 1,000 years after the meteor hit or the nuclear bomb went off, and that's where I was, with what looked like the mother of all storms getting ready to unload above me. And it was truly a dead city. And what I noticed off to my left was a large, I'd say, egg-shaped structure made out of like lattice work. And within it were these small free-floating gears. They're a special kind of gear called a sector gear. It's like a pie slice of a gear. When you think of a gear, you think of a circle with teeth, and it just goes around and around. A sector gear is definitely moving from beginning, middle to end, and that was significant because all these little gears suspended were representations of choices in my future. Obviously, a choice has a beginning, middle, and end, right? And so as I looked at these gears, like a video feed would play in my head of what they represented. And I realized that these are events in my future because I might see my kids who don't have kids with children of their own. I'd see myself as an older person. I'd see me doing things that I knew I hadn't done yet. And so at some point, I asked, like, what is this thing? And this disembodied voice came and stayed with me through the entire experience. And it said, this is the future birthing into the now. This is the process of becoming. And I put my hand through the lattice work because I wanted to see if I could touch one of these gears. And one brushed by my hand, and it was incredibly painful. I doubled over in pain, but reflexively, I grabbed it, pulled it out, and threw it away. And when I did that, all the other gears remaining spinning around. And I said, what's going on now? And it said, well, each gear is a probability of a thought, word, or action in your future. Your destiny is resetting itself around what you've removed. And I said, well, how did I know I could do that? Pulling that gear out and changing that future moment. And it said, well, why else are you here? I said, I have no idea. I don't even know where this is. And it said, you're in the in-between. I said, in between what? It said, everything, the impossible now between the past and the future. And I said, well, that makes no sense whatsoever. And it said, well, it's impossible in its short duration. Yet here you are standing inside the eternity of a single moment. And then it asked me, do you remember the world to which your body belongs? And I really tried to remember. If someone had come up and said, well, if you stay here any longer, you can't go back, I said, go back where? And the voice then said, then you see the truth and how the past is dust. I said, okay, well, why do some of these gears and these futures that I touch make me sick and not others? And it said, well, all choices have unintended consequences, and the pain each brings is your guide. And I said, well, where are the gears that feel good? And I said, you're not here to feel good. That's not the mission. That's not why I was there. I was being given the opportunity to over and over and over again, using only pain as my moral compass, if you will, to find choices in my future that would be to my spiritual detriment and to remove them, essentially stacking the deck. And, I did see a few gears that would be of happy memories one day. I let those pass by. And I, after pulling a whole lot of gears out, I kind of realized there's this pile of gears building up behind me. And I said, well, it kind of looks like if I don't have a bad future, I'm going to have no future at all, even though I now feel less pain because, I'm removing it from its probable state.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
I said, I'm going to die sooner from doing all this. And it said, your destiny has to fit itself around futures that are not
Can
meant
I
to
get
be.
some of that? I'd like to get some of that. How do I get on that?
It said, your number of breaths are already counted. I will worry about your last one. And I said, well, I don't know how comforting that is. And it said, well, eliminating bad choices doesn't mean you won't make wrong ones. You won't know they're wrong until after they pass. Since right and wrong are variables over which you have no control, the answers to what comes tomorrow are a waste. Better is understanding the beauty of how everything fits and refits together. And just to wrap up, I said, what am I missing here in my lack of understanding? I said, what is clearly before you? Grace. No one deserves salvation. It can only be given by grace. It is your birthright, but it has to be chosen at the expense of the world that separates us. And I said, well, this fixing my future is painful, and I feel ashamed I don't have a better moral compass than pain. And it said, well, removing your enthusiasm to further chain yourself to the world isn't as painful as carrying the crushing weight of those chains once forged around you. And for those who make poor use of their choices, perhaps offering fewer possibilities could be called mercy. And then I said, well, I just kind of looked at gears passing in front of me, and it said, you can't change the past, but you can make better choices in the future. Everything is interconnected, and pay more attention to your relationships. Be gentle with everyone as I'm gentle with you. And I said, well, what's gentle about all this? It said, you prayed for something for which being here is the answer. And now the man who fell from the sky is not the same who flew into it. And with that, it kicked me out.
And you were just like, put out back into the hospital.
Like I said, it's like I just saw it zooming out and fade to black.
Oh yeah, the zoom. It's like a tunnel. You kind of go in and out. Or I had that experience. I didn't die. I did have a near-death experience, and I was going down this long tunnel, white tunnel, and these objects were floating around in front of me, and there was a Christmas tree at the end of the tunnel. That was sort of my religious experience, and I felt good. I was going, and I was dying, but they brought me back. But it was sort of this long, and I don't know what our brain does to give you that. And we'll bring Dr. Kelly in shortly after to explain that. But wow, what a story. Andrew, he's a brilliant writer, we can tell. And it's just,
he picked up
that
a lot
was very
of things.
uplifting. It kind of gave me the chills a little bit. So thank you.
I think that a lot of things that were missing from your childhood you received during this experience that you had. You developed a large sense of empathy, certainly, that might have been missing to some degree before this. I learned profoundly after my experience. It was life-changing, as was yours, I'm sure.
It's interesting, like PMH Atwater, who's pretty well known in the NDE world. She says, if you're not psychic before, you'll be psychic after. And if you were psychic, you'll be more so after. And it's interesting how a lot of people return with, I guess, psychic abilities or heightened stuff. If I had to say that, I had anything, it would just be, it's like empathy is my superpower. I can feel people. I can feel people at a distance, how they're feeling and all that. But also really, even though where I went wasn't rainbows and unicorns, it looked like hell, and it really did. But even so, it's a higher plane than here. And coming back from there with that little bit of like an aroma, that radiation you bring back, people still responded to that and how kind they were and how kind they still are. I still go places now and I see that happen. I'll go places and sometimes people just want to hug me. They want to touch me. They want to hold me. I don't know. It's pretty wild. And I just let them because I figure this is something they need to do. And I'm good with that. But what's been rewarding ongoing is that it still talks to me. It still gives me deep, profound thoughts. And I really appreciate that. And
Did you say it?
The voice.
Oh, okay. Who do you attribute the voice to? Or
who knows? Maybe it's a more evolved version of myself. If we're already one with God, as everybody says, then whether it was an evolved version of myself or whether it's God or whatever, who cares? It knows a lot more than I do. And I have found its wisdom to be profound. As one example, recently it said, nothing was put here for your enjoyment. It was put here for your correct use. And it is in its correct use that you will find joy. So that's part of my life now. It's part of what I follow.
Nice.
You've had your life has actually begun since the accident.
Yeah, I've thought about it. It would be fun to get a second astrological chart drawn up on the day you die.
So
because it's your second birthday.
I have a question. You said your father passed away and you didn't have the greatest of relationships. Or you agree to that. I wonder what he went through when he went through this process, and how, if you ever wonder about that, like where he is now.
Well, it's interesting you asked that. I don't know, but can I speak to my mother? I was with her when she was dying in Charlotte in the summer of 2022. And on the morning of the day she died, I was in my morning meditation, and it was like an out-of-body experience where I'm with my mom and we're having this conversation before we were born. And she was planning out.
Let Andrew talk first. Let's let him go and see what he can do first before he tells us too much.
Oh.
I think he needs to tap into the spirit to give you any kind of.
Well, I'm seeing a lot of things that have happened with Jim. Certainly, most of them are good. I feel like your dad was there. Now, a lot of times people will get mistake, like if they don't see a spirit or see something, an apparition, that it must not be there. It can come in the form of a feeling as well. Some of the negativity that you were feeling, or that darker place, I think was resembling somewhat of your childhood to some degree. And maybe Dad was there. You were feeling him because you don't know Dad as this loving, nurturing man. But he is on the other side, certainly trying to be. The veil became thin for your mom as well, and she started seeing spirit. Did she talk about that?
I was with her right through the end. I was with her for 2 months. And in the last time she was in the emergency room, she was talking to somebody. She actually looked up and said, thank you, to some name I have never heard before. And I was like, okay, I guess mom's, getting ready to check out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the veil gets thin for people that are in hospice or just at the end of life. And, her mom, and of course, there were some key people. The name that you didn't recognize was probably because your mom, the names on the other side aren't what we have as humans necessarily. So your mom, that's proof right there to me that she was talking to spirit, and that they were preparing her to go and make it easier for her and more comfortable. That's what happens towards the end of life, in my belief.
Yeah, I mean, like I have no memory of my plane crash. I'm pretty sure I was jerked out before I hit. I don't have any PTSD about it. I could get in another plane and go right now.
How were you found, or what? Where was this crash at?
In Connecticut.
And somebody saw it and just found you, or were you
That's
laying there?
interesting. When I lost my engine, I couldn't make it back to my airfield, so I aimed for a small lake in a Boy Scout camp nearby. And because it was woods, it was forest, it was big rocks, it was going to be a tough choice. So I aimed for the lake, and I overshot the lake, and I crashed into a lot of tree trunks at around 70 miles an hour. What's interesting, that Boy Scout camp in October was closed. Fortunately for me, there was a retired police officer fishing there because he enjoyed the peace and quiet, at least until I came in. And so, because obviously a police officer has seen trauma, has seen, car accidents, or they've seen blood and guts. So he didn't freak out because that would have killed me. Luckily, he also had his phone on him, which he did not usually have. And so he was able to call 911, keep me propped up. Because when I crashed, I broke all my ribs, ruptured both lungs. My right leg was a pretzel. I had a huge lower back. All the skin
Shouldn't be here.
was hanging down. Other than that, I was fine. So,
wow.
Yeah, so
You were so lucky.
So he called 911, helicopter came in and fished me out. But when I finished crashing, there was no plane left around me except what I was seatbelted to behind me. And so they flew me up to Hartford, Connecticut's trauma center. And I, because I had no lungs, I kept having, respiratory failure. And anyway, they put me into a coma because I escaped my restraints, and they said, "Okay, he's a handful. We have a week's worth of day-long operations. We could lose him any time." So they put me into a coma.
Wow.
Your mom is around you all the time. I think you were more of a mama's boy growing up, and very grateful.
Yeah, we had a more solid relationship, especially after my dad died in '86. So. But the morning she died, I was in meditation, and like I said, I was seeing this conversation she and I had before we were both born, and she was really excited about planning this thing out, and I was more like, yeah, whatever. But it's interesting, she wasn't using milestones for the lives we would live in terms of the places we would go or things we would do. The milestones that made this life meaningful for her were the emotions we were going to feel. And then I remembered feeling some of these emotions when I was a real little kid. So I thought, well, Mom, mission accomplished, well done. And then she died that day.
Why do I feel you're the only one that stepped up the most? Were you alone? Yeah, because I feel like
I'm an only child. So yeah, I went and stayed with her for those 2 months while she, in the first night when I was tucking her in, I saw her visually, I saw with my second sight, I saw her change into being dead. And I said, okay, I don't think she has long. But what's the nice thing about knowing somebody's going to die is it gives you a chance to wrap up loose ends.
Right.
For them too.
Well, of course. She gets to say she's sorry, or I get to say I'm sorry, or whatever. You just pull up all the things you haven't been talking about, and you say, now's the time. And again, it was a reminder, as the in-between told me, to pay attention to your relationships, because that's the only reason we come here. We don't come here to cure cancer or go to the moon. We come here for the relationships. And I'm very grateful that I've been given that.
You're making me cry.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Good to know before it's too late, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Well, I believe there's a lot more, actually. Even though you seem to have done a lot of work on this, I feel like there's a lot more that you might be missing. And I think some of it would actually come out through hypnosis or some other form of meditation for you. There's a lot more that happened to you that you're not remembering for whatever reason. You are remembering the key things, which is important, and which is what changed you and gained you a lot of empathy. That was the main thing. And these books, have more of an impact than you think. I don't know what the sales were on them, but I know that whatever books these are, they touched, and the next one is going to reach an even broader audience.
Well, that's because it takes the conversation to the next level. I've spoken a lot about my NDE, and I started to get tired of just the same old thing was, telling the same story 100 times or hearing other people do it. And I said, we really need to take the conversation to the next level and start to deal with how we integrate this spiritually transformative experience. And, there's so many
all
people,
orchestrated.
Well, there's so many people. There's so many people who come back and say, okay, how can I make money off this experience? They want to be the Kim Kardashian of the NDE world. And I'm like, I'm not here to get more wrapped around the axle of the world. I want the conversation that says how you distill this experience into the wisdom of the experience. And so that's what my third book is going to be about, is how you integrate this experience, how you make sense out of it. I'll just give you one quick fact. We have a 53% divorce rate in America with normal people. NDEers have a 78% divorce rate, 50% higher. And during our 18 months of wasted effort on marriage counseling, my wife, I told her, I said, our marriage vow said till death do us part. What happens when one of us dies, no matter that we return? Our covenant is broken, and the only reason we stay together now is because we choose to. And the truth was not well received, but that's also part of the path. Like I said, I'm not the hugs and kisses and unicorns and rainbows guy on this. I'm more like, I felt like I went to boot camp and I was embedded with the military a lot, been in war zones 24 years. That's the spirit, that's the heart I bring to my spirituality, is that same kind of discipline and dedication.
Well, we know you're tough. You survived a crazy crash, and you're also well-read and a good writer. So I can feel that as well. You don't have to be psychic to figure that out. But as far as sort of the nuts and bolts of how our brains work, I have a doctor here to sort of give you an idea of what her perspective would be from a scientific view. And I think she's here, Dr. Kelly Victory. Hello, how are you?
Hello.
Welcome to Calling Out.
Hello. Yeah.
Kelly, you've been listening, I'm sure, and it's quite an interesting story to see what happens to us when we go into a coma, and how our brain works, and what our experiences are, and what we bring back, and how there are some people here on the Rumble Rants and stuff talking about sort of having the same experience. So we can't call this crazy because a lot of people have had this experience before. So how do you look at this?
Yeah, hardly crazy. And so let me sort of provide a broader purview on this, Susan. Yes, I am a Western trained trauma and emergency physician, very scientific, but I tell people I'm half allopathic physician and half shaman. I happen to have a very, very strong spiritual side as well. And part of that, I think, comes from the fact that I have been witness to, probably more than most people, a lot of people in either death or near death. And I developed a fascination with these different circumstances of people having near-death experiences. Obviously, those patients who actually pass on and died, I'm unable to talk to, but I've had the opportunity over the years to interact with many people who died and then came back and tell their story. Furthermore, I've done a lot of reading. There are thousands and thousands of people around the world who have been interviewed. And there's a very well-known palliative physician, James Heilenbeck, at Stanford, who has brought a lot of this data together. So here's where I would start with. People have an idea. The average individual thinks of death as binary. In other words, like flipping a switch. You're alive now, and then something happens and you die. You get shot, you grab your chest, you fall dead. You're in a car accident, you could take an overdose, you have a heart attack, whatever it is. And that you somehow go from being alive to being dead in an instant. And it turns out that that's not actually the case. There is a process during which the body dies. That certainly we see that with people in hospice who over a period of weeks or months degrade and go to dying. But it also happens in an acute incident, whether it's somebody being shot or having a massive heart attack or taking an overdose. And one of the things that's very interesting is that the senses shut down in a specific sequence. They don't all stop at once. The first sense that we lose is taste, which is why when we see people who are ill and beginning to die from cancer, they stop eating, they lose their sense of taste and their appetite. But that is the first one that goes. The second one that goes is vision. Vision starts to go, and people commonly will keep their eyes shut. They no longer are seeing what is in the external world, and they're starting to see more internally, or what's in their imaginations, or what's already in their brains based on previous experience. Then goes touch. Our sense of touch degrades, and people no longer feel what's around them tactically. And then smell, and then finally the last sense to go is hearing, which is why we always tell people, if someone is in a coma, or even if somebody has technically clinically dead, meaning they no longer have a heart rate, heart activity, they no longer are breathing on their own, they may no longer have brainwave activity, okay, and be deemed clinically dead, they may still be able to hear. And interestingly, when we interview and talk to people who have had near-death experiences where they were devoid of any cardiac activity, they were not breathing, the EEG showed no brainwave activity, and somehow through some, whatever you want to call it, miracle, act of God, or whatever it is, ended up coming back to this earth, they are able to report things that they saw and heard that were going around at the time that they were supposedly dead. We will commonly hear reports, and these again happen all around the world. Thousands and thousands of people from different cultures, different religious backgrounds, different spiritual constructs will report the same thing, that they were above their bodies, looking down. They could see the people using the paddles, the defibrillator on their chest. They could see the surgeons working. They could hear them talking. There's a great case of a guy who had a cardiac arrest, was deemed to be dead. During the time that they went to intubate him, to put him on the ventilator during the resuscitation, they took his dentures out. And when he finally came back after being in a coma for, a week or so and having been declared dead and comes back, the nurses said to him, "We've been unable to find your dentures, unfortunately, since, you had a cardiac arrest." And he said, "Oh, they're in the bottom drawer of the crash cart. I saw the nurse put them there." And sure enough, they opened the bottom drawer. He was, so he's looking down on it. So while we can't explain how these things happen necessarily, there are lots of theories about, that you actually weren't dead. There was some very rudimentary amount of brainwave activity, or somehow, the instruments didn't pick up that you still had a heart rate or a blood pressure, but it was still there. Lots of explanations, from the very scientific to the very, very spiritual. And I'm not here to say which one is correct, but I am here to say that there's something very real about this. Interestingly, these things happen, and the reports that people give of what happens to them during these times when they are dead, when they've begun to pass over, are remarkably similar. Nearly 85% of people report something very positive, a sense of overwhelming lightness, love. People describe it as unconditional love, being surrounded by light, lack of pain, a sensation of floating. I felt that too.
I felt very warm, floating towards the light, yes. And I felt
a sensation.
It was like elevation. I was going, and then you want to hear what happened though, Kelly? So my husband's Jewish, and I was floating towards the Christmas tree. And I could see like all these little trinkets floating around that look like things from my life, like my clarinet and, things from my past, my childhood. They always say your life is flashing before your eyes. It's like little things. And then I saw the Christmas tree and I said, "Oh no, I need to go back. They won't get a Christmas stocking. He's a Jew. I'm going back." So I went back. All for the Christmas tree. But anyways, more than that, I want to bring the other two back in. did you ever hear a story like Jim's that was so incredibly elaborate, in any of these kind of cases?
Absolutely. There's a very well-known neurosurgeon who wrote a book about really talking about, the proof of God, proof that heaven exists. And it's about his own experience. He actually had meningitis, bacterial meningitis, and describes a very, very detailed, granular, kind of like doing this with gears and things and lots of mechanical components, and a very different thing than the average person. I would say that most people's experiences are far lighter, more ethereal, this sense of floating, of bright light, of a tunnel, of elation, frequently seeing loved ones in joyous reunions. But there are people who have these more granular descriptions with things, squeezing through tubes and being underground, almost like an earthworm where they're crawling through dirt and things. But it is, as I said, even children, young children will report these. There are kids who have near-death experiences,
Sure.
And they haven't had the opportunity to watch a show like this or read a book or have heard about people going to the light or whatever it is, yet they report these same things. And so, as I said, although, I am perhaps different from the average Western physician in that it doesn't bother me that I don't necessarily have the scientific explanation for something to believe that it's real. There are things that we can't explain that are beyond our current scientific explanation that doesn't invalidate them. And so interestingly, I think one of the reasons, and this will be my last thought, and I'll give your other guests time to finish it out. But one of the things it is not uncommon for people after a near-death experience to feel more spiritual. Not everyone goes full out to become like Andrew, to become a psychic. Or have that, but it is not uncommon to feel more enlightened. And I think that part of it is this idea of having seen what we've always wondered about, having had a glimpse that you've actually seen what is on the other side, what awaits us. And I don't know how that could make you anything other than more spiritual. I don't know how your life could never be the same after you have been to that place or witnessed, even for a moment, the great unknown.
Yes,
Exactly.
I agree. Yeah, that's what I've heard, and it's chilling. Like, I want people to hear this kind of information, just because you're still here on Earth and you still have an opportunity to do the same thing. You have the ability to find spirituality. You have the ability to change your moral compass. And, you don't have to be in a near-death experience to do it, but there is something later, and, we shouldn't be afraid of going to the other side, but there is a beautiful thing about it that gives us spirituality. Even, some people are more attuned to it. Obviously, Andrew, he's a spiritual guide because of it. And, that's a beautiful thing. I really like him. I like having him around. He gives me good advice. He's a good person. And, and I also like Kelly a lot. She's a good person. I like having her around, but she's, you've investigated into this. But yeah, so how do you feel about that, Jim? Like, does that make you feel better? Or?
Perspective. It's not that I feel better. And one thing I've learned is your spiritual evolution doesn't care whether you like it or not. You're going, But one of the things that I think is worth focusing on is when we are looking at it. And again, Kelly would certainly say there are a lot of doctors out there who say, "Oh, it's just a hallucination" or something like that. But honestly, how do you explain the after effects that follow? Like, how do I explain the bag of blown up light bulbs, my blown up HVAC system, and 4 of the 5 damper motors in the work? How do I explain my son watching me blow up the microwave one day? How do I explain my phone saying to me one day, "Thank you for being a kind and loving person," out of nowhere? And how do I explain accidentally signing a book to a woman who lost her husband in a plane crash, and I didn't put today's date? I accidentally wrote their wedding anniversary. How do I explain all that, right? That didn't happen before. Oh, yeah, sure. A few light bulbs will blow up here and there, but not a significantly, not a significant statistic amount. It was, so you do have a lot of things that echo around you that say, whether it's your bioelectric field or who knows what the heck it is, but you do have these little reminders that life isn't the same and things aren't the same. And it's more than just what happened during the near-death experience. Another thing, as I've also said to people, is a spiritually transformative experience that encompasses an NDE. Sometimes people get into a bragging contest. Oh, I had one NDE. Well, I had 3, I had 5. I said, an NDE is like a 2x4 upside the head. I wouldn't brag that it took 5 of them to get your attention.
I think I need a few of those. But so Andrew, from a spiritual perspective, and also you having the same experience, what's your takeaway?
Well, I believe that everybody's experience that they had on the other side was based on the level or the evolution of their soul. That's my belief. There's more advanced souls out here than others. There's people that need to go and have that experience for varying reasons. So everyone's specific to them. Mine was different. I was already a psychic medium before I had the experience. Going to that enhanced things and put me at a whole nother level, and just gave me clarity and just removed the doubt out of my mind of the afterlife, if there ever was any. Our church, Bible, church, everything, God is all based on faith, right? To me, I don't need faith. I know that's me personally, and I think Jim knows too. And I think there's a lot more for Jim to uncover. I'd be interested to talk to you off the later date sometime, Jim.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So I believe everybody's experience on the other side is indicative to them and their life and their path and what they're going through. Mine had to be what it was for me to tell the story the way I did to the tens of thousands of people since. That was my goal, my job. This is what I was supposed to do. Other people are having the experience and just having the experience, and that's all it is. But some people are supposed to profoundly change their lives, and it did for me, that's for sure. And Jim too. So
yeah, I agree. It's tailor-made.
Go ahead.
I was going to say it's tailor-made to the individual for sure. And I think if you could look at it if you look at it from the outside, it looks like a random event. Oh, wow, look what happened. But I think if you could see it from the inside, you'd see it was the next most natural step in someone's spiritual evolution that this happened.
That's very true.
And I'm so grateful that both of... Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I was wondering, what you said you had an NDE too.
So it wasn't quite an NDE. When I gave birth to triplets, I lost my blood pressure, and I was high on certain things. They forgot to give me something, a steroid, after I gave birth. And I was, I just had 3 babies removed from my uterus. So it's a big trauma. But my blood pressure dropped, and Drew could probably explain this better. He just walked in the room. I started hallucinating. I started, playing the clarinet, and I started doing weird stuff. But I was envisioning this long tunnel, this white, warm light, and I was going towards the light. And my husband's going to come over and explain the medical part of it. We don't have a camera for you there,
okay, I'll
but
just explain.
okay, Drew's going to explain because
I'll be the voice of God. So she is conflating 2 stories. One is she had a Bell's palsy during her pregnancy and required a high dose of corticosteroids. During the stress of the delivery, they are supposed to give what are called stress steroids, or they go into adrenal crisis and shock, which she did. And I'm sitting there saying, did you give her the hydrocortisone during the surgery? And they're like, you can't ask those questions. I'm like, yes, I can. And they had not, and they did. Okay. And then she got high on all the meds and started hallucinating. But during the shock and the Addisonian crisis, that's when she saw the tunnel and the Christmas tree, which she'll tell you about.
I did.
The thing that followed was continued multiple medical problems that followed, but they were not as acute and as dangerous as that shock episode.
Yeah. So anyways, I came back. I didn't go to the light. They wouldn't have let me, I don't think. I had the good news about having an internist in the family is he comes in handy occasionally. He saved my life because I was pretty sick. But I did have this spiritual experience of wondering what was after the Christmas tree. It was warm. I was going towards it. I did feel good, and it wasn't just the drugs. It was something.
I don't know,
beyond
Susan.
that.
If I got to tell you, if I had just had triplets, I might have gone to the light. I think I might have just. I don't know. I would have just said, "Peace out. I'm going to the light."
You know what? I don't want to say that because this is a family show, but I did have that thought. I thought it does feel really good. It doesn't really.
No, you know,
Boy,
I'm kidding.
was I
I
wrong.
love your kids.
It came back. No, I know. No, yeah, you can have them. Anyway, so that was my experience, and that's why I have an interest in this topic. But I'm really fortunate to have both of you here to talk about it because it brings me, peace of mind and love in my heart, and to see that it's something grand out there, that gives us lessons. I don't know what happens. I don't know, Andrew, do you have any idea of what happens once we go there and when we come back, or if we come back? What are your thoughts on that?
Are you speaking to my experience?
Yes. Like if in the afterlife, like once we pass away.
I did not want to leave where I was. I did not even think of leaving. It was not even a thought. I think it's to Jim's point too. I felt like it was so easy to get around. It was just peaceful. It was where everything became clear in my mind, but I didn't need to think about it, which was really because you don't have a brain on the other side. But it's hard to explain it, but that's what I feel. My mom pushed me back, and I remember that event like it was yesterday. I don't know if it was actually her, but last thing I remember was her hands pushing me, saying, "You're not done here yet."
Wow.
And then I woke up. But my mom was a lower spirit entity. Maybe it was me seeing her, but I was actually just forced back.
Wow.
But
That's a very
beautiful experience. And like Jim, things kept coming over the next weeks. More and more and more downloads kept coming about what happened. And then that's your books. I never wrote a book about it, but maybe someday.
Well, you're here to talk about it today. This is like a book.
That's right.
This is a virtual book. Yes, but I love your story, Jim, and I want everybody to go to his website over at www.inbetweenproductions.com, which is a good way to remember it. On Instagram, you can find him at jim.bruton, Bruton. And if you want to get his book, and learn more about this, you can actually go there and get his book. So it's on Amazon, In Between, A Trip of a Lifetime. And then also The Practice In Between, The Art of Letting Go.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we really appreciate you taking the time to do this and for sharing your story, and Andrew as well. You've got a lot of insight into this world. The audience is very excited about the topic. They said it's beautiful, and people are saying things like we are perfect to eternity and the afterlife, and it's okay to be human, and just everybody's opening their arms to this conversation.
I'm seeing a lot of people sharing their own stories about near-death experiences that they've had. I put some of the comments up on screen as they're telling it, but at least 3 or 4 people in the comments are telling similar stories. So it's interesting. We don't usually get that type of response from people that have actually experienced things that we've talked about on the show. So it's very interesting to see so many.
That's great.
So, you always
Anybody
have to ask a psychic.
Jim, anybody approached you yet with a movie deal?
Oh.
I feel something out there.
Well, it'd be great. I thought about just even putting together some type of, with the new video production tools they have that leverage AI and virtual realities, it'd be fun just to do my NDE as a 3-minute, hide CGI. But
I see some form of production for you.
I'd love to talk to somebody if somebody, was interested. I think we could flesh something out. I had a pretty adventurous life before this. All 7 continents, Titanic, North Pole, Mount Everest, war zones, I have an Emmy for work with National Geographic, knighted by the King of Malaysia. I was a lecturer at Yale University School of Medicine. I was an NBC News war correspondent. I mean, you have a lot of things there you could pick from to say, wow, how'd you go from here to there?
Yeah.
That's my
Brilliant
cocktail
mind.
resume right there.
You know what? And I'm glad God gave you back. So you're here to talk about it. And I think, share the word that, there is something interesting there. And
Thanks.
you're
Kelly and Andrew, nice to meet you.
Yeah, and
Thank
then
you.
Kelly, let's bring Kelly on too, so she can say goodbye to Jim. And so Kelly, thank you.
I appreciate hearing your stories. And as I said, it's wonderful because it just, each one I hear, they are so similar. Each one is unique, but they have so many similarities that it leads you to really have great faith, for me at least, that this is real. The phenomenon is real. People are, I believe, going to a different place, whatever you choose to call it, heaven or the afterlife or the in-between. And I think that hopefully over time we will garner more stories. I'm not sure I want the explanation. I'm not sure that we need that. I think part of spirituality and faith or religion or whatever is the fact that we don't have to have a scientific explanation for everything. It takes away some of the beauty.
Amen. And you can find Kelly also at Dr. Kelly Victory on X. She's also a host on Ask Dr. Drew, and she's going to be around a little bit. I just really appreciate you taking your time out of your day to do this for me. I really, really do appreciate it.
Happy to do it. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
And you can also find her at the Wellness Company. She is what is your title at the Wellness Company?
I'm the Chief of Disaster and Emergency Medicine. So
Yes,
I'm very wedded to my Western. I tell you, I'm a mass casualty specialist, and enjoying working with Dr. Drew and Dr. McCullough and Dr. Reish, and it's really
one of our proud sponsors.
It's a great group.
That.
They're the titans of the medical freedom movement.
Yes, and then Andrew, we can find him at psychicmediumreading.org. So if you want to have a chat with him, you can email or go to his website at psychicmediumreading.org. And then once again, check out inbetweenproductions.com, because these are all great things. Get the book, give it to somebody for the holidays, get your loved one a psychic reading for the holidays. It makes a great stuffing stuffer.
Good idea. I agree.
Stuffing stuffer. No, but we're gonna have a Black Friday special, and you can get a reading for 15% off if you say calling out with Susan Pinsky. No, I really appreciate your time, everybody. And we're gonna swap things up a little bit and bring in Toby Gant. He's a holistic soul coach. And I talked to him today. He emailed me as a fan and said, I think this is right up my alley. But we like to try a little bit of everything. We like to bring in people that are out in the universe that want to be a part of our show and see how they work. We're going to bring on Alex, and she's going to get a psychology session right after the break.
Joint and muscle pains are exhausting and frustrating, but I've got a over-the-counter medication I want to introduce you to that provides great relief using the power of, check it out, chili peppers. Capsidin is made with a proprietary formula that contains no non-steroidal anti-inflammatory agents, no opioids, no anesthetic or steroid, nothing, no chance for addiction, no side effects. No chance it's going to interact with other medication you might be taking. Capsidin contains capsaicin, which is the substance in chili peppers that burns your tongue. That gives you that burny feeling. And of course, I've recommended capsaicin creams to patients over the years, but other capsaicin creams burn your skin. That's what makes capsidin so unique. In clinical trials, capsidin has actually been demonstrated not to burn.
I've been using capsidin to relieve my pain in my hands and my wrist from carpal tunnel syndrome and arthritis. The results have been amazing. I use it every day during my show, and I highly recommend it.
Get the pain relief you need from various sources, even backache, sprains, bruises even. Order now at capsidin.com/Drew to get a 15% discount plus free shipping. That is CAPSADYN, capsidin.com/DREW.
I swear by this stuff. I'm not just doing it because they give me money. I literally use this. I had some stem cells injected into my carpal tunnel or whatever is going on with my thumbs. And the first couple of weeks, they were kind of swollen and hurt a lot. And the nerves were very raw. And I put this capsidin on and it went away. I was so happy. So I wanted to mention it. I wanted to shout out to capsidin. It's hard to spell, but if you go to drdrew.com/cap, I think you can also get to the link. But it's CAPSAYDYN if you're listening to the podcast.
No, it's actually
Okay.
it's a CAPSADYN.
DYN. Oh shit, I spelled it wrong. Okay. Thank you, Kaleb. No, I mean, I'm Dr. Drew's wife. I'm not the best at reading teleprompters or doing ads, but I'm just going to endorse this 100%. And I do use it every day. It also works on mosquito bites, by the way, and bee stings. So it does something with that. You know, when you get a mosquito bite, it just so much. You put this on and it goes away. It's a radical improvement. So get some today. And also, we want to tell everybody we're thrilled to welcome our fabulous new sponsor, Holistic Goddess. You heard me talk about it last week. This woman-owned small business is all about empowering women by curating wellness products like supplements, gummies, and essential oils. There are many collections to choose from. There is the Signature Collection, an all-natural solution group designed to empower and balance a woman's unique health journey. The Naked Collection, pure bison organ capsules rich in bioflavor nutrients, free from vaccinations, fillers, and impurities. And then there's the Essentials Collection, a therapeutic organic essential oils distilled from nature's finest ingredients. And then the Trusted Brand Collection, which Steph picks out herself. All the collections come from a carefully vetted marketplace of wellness solutions for holistic care. Love this product. Also, elevate your well-being with our selection of organic essential oils, lavender, eucalyptus, tea tree, lemon, and peppermint, and get a free essential oil guidebook with therapeutic uses, aromatherapy practices, and DIY recipes. I guess you can eat it too. They also offer amazing supplements, Meta Radiance supplements for metabolism support, the Well Belly Digestive Support Supplement, and Dream Ease Sleep Enhancer Gummies. Oh, and of course, castor oil for skin, hair, lashes, and brows. I mean, they have so many different items for the women. Women are just swearing by it. So whether you're navigating your 20s, pregnancy, menopause, Holistic Goddess offers personalized products in every stage of life. And great news for our calling out listeners, they're offering an exclusive 15% discount. Oh yes, you want that deal. Just visit drdrew.com/holistic to claim it. Oh, and gentlemen, you're welcome to shop too. Perfect thing for the holidays. You want to buy a little gift for the girl or yourself, you can use it too. I'm sure a lot of this stuff cross-pollinates. So head over to drdrew.com/holistic. That's HOLISTIC for 15% off. All right, so I'm going to go back to my guests today and welcome Toby. He is a soul coach, and I have Alex, who is here to get a reading. She emailed me and said that she had some problems in her life she wanted some help with, and we said, what a perfect idea. Let's bring her on and see if we can get her some psychology. I had a session today, and I think this guy can help you with some of the things that you're asking about. And I think Robin may chime in too, because she has some of the same problems. So anyways, we're gonna let Toby tap into your energy and see where he goes with it. I heard him on the phone. I haven't seen him in person, but it was interesting how he worked, and I'll be here watching in spirit.
Well, let me just explain a little bit about what I do. So I'm not exactly a medium. I am clairvoyant. And by clairvoyant, I mean I go within and I get imagery in my mind's eye. You could say the pineal gland, the third eye. I don't want to go too down the scientific route of why that happens. But I see symbolic imagery for people. And once I get the symbols, I kind of have to sit with, what do they mean? Like, it's a little bit of psychic, intuitive detective work to figure out what it means. So I tuned in a little bit to Alex, and it's interesting. It's interesting. I want to tell you the unpleasant part first so we can get to the pleasant part. Is that okay?
Ready.
Okay, Alex. So when I tune in, the unpleasant thing I saw was shattered glass everywhere on the floor. And you are trying to pick it up and you're cutting yourself and you're bleeding and you're crying. And you know that the shattered glass is hurting you, but it's like you're trying to put something back together that cannot be put back together. But I'm just going to say it, you're very stubborn on this one. I don't think in general you're a stubborn person, but on this one, good God, you are, pardon me, but you are stubborn, like really, really stubborn. And you just keep trying to pick it up. So I was like, what does this broken glass represent? So what I got was the broken glass represents a vision you've had of what your life should look like, how your life should be. It's got to be this. It's supposed to be this. I think the universe shattered it for you, and that was a good thing, but it doesn't feel like a good thing because all you have is the broken pieces now. You've not let those go. You keep cutting yourself, bleeding on the broken pieces of what was or what should have been, so that you're not able to get into what your heart and soul want for you. And when I work with people, I don't tell them what they want to hear. I tell them what I think their soul wants them to know, or the higher self, whatever term you want to use. It's not all bad, though. If something's shattered, not broken, but shattered, it can't be fixed, and it shouldn't be fixed, because you got to start from scratch with something brand new. Now, that doesn't mean do over, start over, back to square one with nothing. I lost everything. I'm going to tell you what I think this is based on. I think that this relates to a past relationship. I don't think you're stuck on him, the past guy in the relationship, but I think you're stuck on the idea of what you cultivated and created for what your life should like in that relationship. Like in that relationship, you're like, okay, I'm going to do this and my life's going to look like that, and family, whatever, I'll have a family, all of that. I think the ideas that formed around how your life should look in the context of that relationship is really what is holding you back more than him per se. And I love, Jim said something that just stuck with me that I think so relates to you. And I'm very much paraphrasing, but basically one of the things he was getting at was the future is not set in stone. It is not set in stone. So the good news about that is there are many different ways. It's not my life's going to go this way or my life's going to go that way. It could go this way or 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 this way. Like there's so many different ways that your life can go. And that's a beautiful thing if you're open to it. So I have a question for you. Are you ready to put down those broken pieces of glass that keep slicing you up and making you bleed and suffer?
I hope so. I mean, yeah, I never thought about it that way, to be honest.
Okay. In letting go of those old pieces, it doesn't mean that your deep heart and soul desires won't come to fruition, but there needs to be more openness to possibilities and flow within your life. It's like you've been blocking yourself. I also saw a broken horseshoe and I was like, what does this mean? And basically I got the message that the broken horseshoe felt like bad luck, but how do you define luck? Is it just fate? The universe is frowning on me, or is bad luck self-imposed because of a mindset? I tend to kind of steer towards the latter. It's a little more self-imposed because of limited thinking, old thinking patterns that aren't serving us anymore. So you got some good stuff that can come your way if you're willing to have a new view. One of the problems too is you've got to love and embrace the life that you have right now. Like, love it. Go, wow. Instead of dwelling on what you don't have, you've got to celebrate and embrace what you do have. It's so hard when we really, really want something and we don't have it yet to really embrace all the good in our lives. Very nutshell story. My aunt is probably pushing 90, I don't know, mid 80s. And she had a big 60th anniversary this summer. I went, the whole family from all over the country flies in. She can't enjoy it because she has a son that won't speak to her and grandchildren she doesn't see. And her whole life is revolved around what she thinks she's lost, so that she's not able to live and celebrate all the good in her life. I feel like there's something like that for you. Like, I don't want to say don't. I feel like you might have been too stuck on what you don't have and hasn't happened, and not going, oh my God, what I have is so rich and wonderful and amazing. And if you really, and I know you can, it might not be easy to switch the mindset, but when you switch that mindset to, I love all that I've created, all that I have, all that's going on in my life, I'm so grateful. Like, when you really can switch to that gratitude mindset, the other stuff can start to flow, like really start to flow. I also got another vision that ties in with this. I saw a horse. I see horses a lot when I tune in for people, and they always mean something different for everyone. So I saw a horse that was a representation of you, and you were standing at the fence line looking over into this other pasture. You know, they always say the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. It was that sort of thing. But it was also kind of like you were looking into this pasture that represented a likely future scenario for you, a likely future possibility for your life. But you couldn't get to it because there was this low fence in the way. It wasn't a high fence. Like, let's say, you know, the horse is standing at the fence. It's not like the fence came up to here. It was more like down at like knee or hip level, you know. And there was this sense to me like, well, why doesn't she just jump over the fence? And I got the word fear, and not fear that you couldn't clear the fence. God, how do I describe this? It was really interesting. It was like fear of messing up somehow. Fear of it. It was really weird. There's some things holding you back from good things in your life, but mindset is a huge part of it. Now, I also got that little low fence that you couldn't hop over into the greener pasture, it was self-imposed. You put it there yourself. It wasn't put there by someone else. You put it there. Unconsciously, unknowingly, you put it there, which to me is good news because that's empowering. If you put the obstacle,
you can take it away.
Exactly. You can get it out of there and move it.
So Alex, you're shaking your head. What is any of this resonate with you at all?
I'm trying to find how it resonates. I mean, if it's something that was really far back in the past, it could make sense to me. In hindsight, I look back and there were a lot of people that I probably should have given more of a chance to, or not been scared to ruin a friendship or, take a next step. But in more recent times, I feel like the fences were put there by other people or circumstance.
Nope, they weren't. And I say that as empowerment, not to discourage you. What about the vision of how your life should be? How have you been around that concept recently?
In recent years, as I get older, I kind of feel like I don't have a choice but to throw away the idea of what I thought my life would look like, which is it's really hard.
Okay, thank you. Let me address that. I don't have a choice. This choice is being made for me. So fine. Like, can we switch the thinking around that into, okay, what I thought my life should be isn't coming into fruition the way I thought. So that means, oh, woe is me, or the universe hates me. Or is it, there's something so much better that I haven't been able to imagine yet because I haven't been open to it? And again, I lean towards the latter. I really think there's a better vision that wants to come in, but there can be no sense of bad luck. There can be no sense of the universe is frowning on me. There can be no sense of, well, it was taken away from me and that's not fair. It's got to be a mindset shift that sets you
like
free.
Maybe there's a reason for everything. This is, make lemonade from lemons. Like there's a good reason for this. Like, and be positive, have positive mental energy when it comes to dating or who you're hanging out with or whatever. Like how you're, I guess what we need to say is that she's wondering about her love life and her dating situation, like how she can break free of whatever has not been working for her and move in the right direction. So, and I don't know, like women, we get in our heads like what we want and what we expect from men. And sometimes we get in our own way, Men are not perfect, trust me. They're far from it. Like it's right? Right, Toby?
We're perfect.
My wife had to literally walk up to me and like we had been in the friend zone with each other, had no actual, we didn't even try anything for like a year and a half of knowing each other. And she just walks up to me one day and she's just like, date me. Why haven't you dated me yet? And then now we have 2 kids and we've been married almost 10 years. So
you might have to make the first
move. You might have to
move.
make a move. Yeah. I was never going to make a move. I was like, this is a friend here. I have no, then it's like, okay, sure, I'll date you. I thought she was joking. Obviously she was not.
I wish I did that a little earlier in my life.
Caleb, you're dense. You're dense, Caleb.
I know.
Here, this is us
one day
now.
Caleb will.
Yeah.
Aren't they cute?
Beautiful.
Just do it.
She just had to smack you on the head to get
producer
me.
Granny.
Basically, yeah. And we were all it was kind of like a 3 days of like a constant surprise of like, wait a second, you? Wait, you? Like, okay, so wait, are we going to kiss now? I guess?
I mean,
we're friends, but okay. And then it just kept going and going and never ended.
As happy as Caleb is with his kids, that's not the end all for life. Like there is a good beginning. You're very young, okay? I'm not going to say how much younger you are than me. I don't want to talk about it. But you do have a lot of life ahead of you, and there are things that will make you happy. And I know companionship is super important. But I don't know, listen to Toby, like try to just take some steps to be a little bit, jump over the fence. You know what I mean? Give it a shot, see what happens. We're all very careful about, doing the wrong thing, saying the wrong thing, calling too soon, being, if you're attracted to somebody, tell them, be open and honest about it. And I don't know. What do you think you could do to improve your dating scene or finding the right guy?
I'd probably move out of New York, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
It's super hard. I mean, the way people date nowadays is not conducive to long-term relationships necessarily.
Right.
It's difficult. And I've made a lot of concessions in the last year, or changes to the way that I've approached dating. In the past, I've been not so open to someone who maybe was divorced, already had kids, et cetera. And I've changed a lot of that and thought things were going in a more positive direction, but it seems to also present other problems too. So that the last one wasn't so successful, but.
You love the life you've created already.
It feels empty, to be honest.
Okay. Again, this goes back to mindset. I want to say, The universe is going to hand it to you on a silver platter. But the reality is there are so many options still on the table for you. And the key to getting the good options to start flowing for you is to mindset shift. There's a stuck mindset. And there's not a celebration of you as an individual. There's not a celebration of all that you've done and created and achieved and accomplished. Even if there's things you don't have yet, there's so much good that needs to be embraced. And you got to go, wow, I love that, I've done this and I've experienced this and I experienced that. It's got to go to a gratitude mindset, which I get it. My God, I've struggled with depression. When I get into depression, I am not grateful. When I get out of my head and into my heart and just start getting into the flow, the magic of life starts to happen.
You think she'll attract people more with that kind of attitude, or what is it about that you think will help her find love?
For sure. But I got to tell you, I've just got to be straight up.
It's easy to say, but it's like, it's
the mindset that's the obstacle. Now, granted, New York is a tough place for sure, because the mindset of the people there, a lot of them are younger, climbing the ladder of the corporate world, all of that stuff. There aren't as many people there as interested in like creating a
well, and it probably was pretty rough during the pandemic and stuff. Were you there the whole time during the pandemic?
Awful. Yes.
Yeah. So it was it's terrible because nobody socialized. I mean, she lost 5 years of her life right there. It's, in critical times, in critical dating times. But we don't want you to be depressed. I mean, I can't give you a direct answer right now on how to change your entire life. But I think if you listen to some of Jim's insight about, gratitude and feeling good about yourself and just exhuming that, maybe finding spirituality and something will come. I hope. I'm going to pray for you. So,
thank you.
And then, we're running out of time here, and I hate to cut you off, but my husband has a job in 5 minutes, and I hope you had a little psychic therapy there, and it'll make you feel good about yourself, because you are a wonderful person and you deserve the best, and you are young, so please don't give up. You'll be okay, and stay in touch with us. Come back on another time. We'll talk to your grandma and see how your dating life is going.
Thank you so much.
Yes, and thank you so much, Toby. Where's my thing? I want everybody to know where to find Toby. You can find him at I guess it's Shekinah Holistic Soul Coach. That's what he calls himself on Facebook. So Shekinah, he's the ShekHolistic.com. Toby Gant. You can find him on Instagram at Shek Holistic. That's SHEK Holistic. And also on YouTube, you can find him there, Shekinah Holistic. And thank you so much for emailing me and making an appearance on this show, because I like your energy. I like what you're talking about, and it doesn't have to be, what you're giving is love and light and hope, to people. And you gave me some today too. I know that this is like on a live TV show, so it's not like in person and you don't get to really go deep, but I'm sure that something good will happen to her because of you. So I'm hopeful. And thank you for your time. And also, I want to thank Robin Delano for producing this show with me. She's also single, if anybody is looking for somebody. And then
I love it. Calling out plus dating.
Yeah. So yeah, she's also on the prowl. But maybe did you learn something from what he said to her?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Change my mindset. I'm going to change my mindset. See over the prairie, a really hot guy.
You're wonderful.
Hotness.
And you're worth it. And you're worth it, Robin.
I'm going to ride that horse through my pasture to the hot guy.
Oh, wait. Show her camera. She's got her arms up in the air, Caleb. She's
I'm going.
Around.
It's rough out there, though. We have to go right now, but it is rough out there in these big cities. You know what I mean? It's rough, but I'm ready to get on a horse and ride towards my man in those pastures. I'm telling you.
I'm sure we can find somebody over on Rumble to help you out. But okay,
we have
so
to go, though.
once again, find me. I'm at First Lady of Love on X. I'm also at First Lady of Love on Instagram. But email me at callingout@drdrew.com. If you want to be a part of the show, if you want to be showcased like Toby was today, that was very interesting and fun. And he has a lot of good positive energy. He made me cry today, just by the way. And also thank you to our sponsors and all the guests that we had today. And we'll see you next week with Psychic Rebel Colby and a surprise guest.